first, are you happy with the sound?
It's a Zoom thing though, isn't it? If you want to look like you make an effort, not like John.
Yeah, John, bloody effort in, mate.
Hey, this is an effort. This is not one of my free, branded t-shirts from a cloud provider. This is one of my very own t-shirts that I bought myself.
You're wearing a shirt today.
Yeah,
oh, it was misled.
Didn't mean to, apologies.
It's the filter, Ryan, that's it.
I'm completely naked.
You never
Just
seen
shirt
it?
filter.
Right?
Yeah,
Oh
no.
my God, Ryan, you do look a lot. You look cleaner.
I don't like this. Is this
It's like you've had a
me?
wash.
Yeah, I know, it's not me at all.
Oh, zero compassion there from one of your fellow podcasters.
And John's light is blinding, so I need to just stop looking at it.
Hold on.
But staring at the sun.
Well, that's a good yellow. Then there you go. It's kind of like the Digitals yellow. There you go.
Okay, hi, welcome to Digitals in a Cruel World, an original podcast which explores the world of tech, apps, and digital adoption in the accounting and business world. If you've enjoyed listening to our previous episodes, then hopefully you'll enjoy the following one, but also make sure you spread the word about the pod, tell your friends, make sure that you spread it on LinkedIn and wherever else you can do. This is the perfect podcast, we think, for you to spread the word with and to share with your friends, anyone that's interested in technology. It's what we're all about. Perfect for long journeys down to the south of France as well. By subscribing, if you get the chance, it also means that you get all the episodes landing in your phone or a podcast app, whatever it is that you use, automatically as they drop whenever we get the chance to get them out there. Today, we've got really exciting guests. We've got David Tuck, formerly of Chaser, about to launch a really new exciting app. But first, Ryan, how's your week gone? What's going on with you?
It's good, thanks. John, obviously excited to do another podcast with you, mate. And yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while since we got together, and I think a lot's gone on. But my week, I'm just exhausted. So if I'm awake by the end of this, it'll be a plus. You would have kept me entertained, John.
Excellent. Well, just for clarity, we are filming in the evening for a change. We normally do it in the afternoon, but because Indy is our International Woman of Mystery this week, and she's leading her usual jet set lifestyle. Where are you, Indy, and what are you up to?
I'm in Barcelona right now. I should be out enjoying some sangria and tapas, but I thought I'd spend my evening with all of you.
Amazing. And just for reference, Indy put her back out carrying her own bags, which she doesn't normally do. So that explains a lot, doesn't it? And last but not least, our amazing guest, David Tuck. How are you, David? What's going on?
Hi, John. Hi, everyone. Thrilled to be here. I'm very well. Very well, thank you. Off on Friday for a week for half term. So got a sort of 10-hour drive with three kids in the back down to the south of France in Burgundy, which is going to be interesting. But yeah, life is really good. Making some really good progress on Mayday, which is my next venture. Had a great kind of round of demo feedback across the last couple of weeks, including a highlight of that, obviously, John, being the feedback session with you. So yeah, feeling in really great shape and just getting started on work with the build of our first product, Mayday Recharger, with a goal of getting a sellable product live for Christmas.
Excellent. That sounds very exciting, David. And as Ryan said, it's been a busy few weeks, lots of news going on, so we'll launch into that in a second. Okay, moving on to our app news part of the pod. Ryan, I think you've got some news on the big three.
Yeah, definitely. And those big three being QuickBooks Online, Sage Business Cloud, and Xero, which is in case no one else apart from John refers to them as the big three. What we got. So there's been a few releases or updates over the last month. QuickBooks Online have actually done quite a lot in their QuickBooks Online Advanced tool, but that's US specific, so I'm not going to delve into that. Something that they brought out for all their product is the ability to accept deposits on estimates. So raising an estimate, you can ask for a deposit, that comes in, it instantly creates an invoice to record the tax on it. Sage Business Cloud have finally released bank rules and the ability to bulk delete transactions that are imported, so you can get a lot more automation from your bank process. And Xero, few from Xero, a few little tweaks, little changes. Xero expenses have now been brought into the Xero Me app, so as well as timesheets, etc. You've got the expenses for the individuals that you bring in, your individual employees you bring in. They've got a lot of work going on in the reports packs. I'm not going to delve too much into that because it's all stuff coming down the future, but they're putting a lot of work into reporting. There's an app launcher that's coming out. It's in beta at the moment. So in the top right-hand corner of Xero, you can basically click a box and select the apps you're connected to, and it opens those so you can access everything from within Xero. That'll be coming soon. And Xero have also now got an advanced Square integration. They're turning off the old one. So there's a new one in place, and they're turning off the old one in November. So if you've been working with Square through Xero, change over, because otherwise you're going to lose your feed. That's it for me.
Super, thanks, Ryan. Indy, I think you've got some updates on fundraisers and stuff.
There's quite a few that have come into the market landscape in the last 6 weeks. So in sixth place, and it's again based on the raise and not a reflection of how good we think it's going to be, is Vine with a seed round funding of 15.5 million. John, I think that's your sweet spot of open banking, which I know that you know a lot more about. So I don't know if you have some more intel.
It's totally my favorite topic at the moment until I get bored of it. So yeah, Vine are effectively building an open banking platform, particularly sort of aimed at merchants. So they're wanting to, provide open banking services, but really specifically focused on payments, and looking to, I suppose, build out that modern technology on something that's quite old, if you like, in terms of those card and EPOS systems that we see, which tend to be a little bit clunky and running on old tech. So very exciting. Not something that we'll necessarily see front and center from the clients that we're working with, but certainly something that will be built into the services that they're going to be using in the future.
Great. And then in fifth place, we have Atomic, a payroll API provider. It's raised $22 million in a Series A, taking its total to $39 million to date. Atomic aims to give users more control of their income by allowing users to connect it to different services, such as setting up a direct debit or direct deposit at a neobank. I don't know if you have any experience, guys, with Atomic at all, or what you think it could do for the accounting space.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite excited about this. It's very much kind of a US focused product at the moment, but what they're trying to do is really provide connections into payroll solutions, as Indy said, but with a way that is going to allow the end users, so the people being paid, to sort of do what a few other people are doing at the moment, which is to be able to draw down your salary almost as it's earned. So I think we've mentioned WageStream over here in the UK. They do something very similar, and there's a couple of other apps in this space. And I think it's really exciting. And the more products that we see in this kind of space, the more competitive it's going to be, and the better service that people like you and I who are receiving a wage will get, hopefully.
And then in fourth place, we have Rewind, a data backup and recovery platform for SaaS applications. It's raised $65 million in a Series B round. I think the main pull here is as more businesses become reliant on cloud tools and data stored within them, backups are going to be more of a standard practice for both data and business continuity purposes. Previously, they've worked with bigger software enterprise level platforms such as Salesforce, but there's still an obligation that the business themselves has some level of versioning control that they can roll back to.
Yeah, I think Rewind's an interesting tool. It's definitely more prevalent over in the US than the UK at the moment. I think the main one that I compare this to that people might be aware of in the UK is Back Up My Books. And Rewind was very focused on QuickBooks Online, but I think following this raise, they've now started developing backup for about 12 other major cloud providers, including Xero. So I think we're going to see a lot more of them in the UK over the coming months and years.
And then third place, we have TrueLayer, $130 million. Again, John's favorite subject, open banking. So I'm going to hand it over.
And because India's unicorn shy, this does take TrueLayer up to unicorn status with this latest round. So, huge congratulations to the team there, and a product that's not been around for a lot long in reality. TrueLayer, for those that don't know, effectively is building a technology platform that is enabling other people to build on their technology to utilize open banking. So that might be to initiate payments, it might be to do things that you'll see in things like Xero and QuickBooks Online to connect bank feeds, for example. And the reason for this funding is they've spent a huge amount of time, opening up their position in Europe and the UK. And then I try and really to open up the US, and in a similar way to Vine as well, really looking at opening up payment services in particular in new markets. So that's definitely the growth, the big growth place at the moment is payments. We're seeing lots of new apps, certainly in the UK, and as you can see, some of the really big players are now expanding internationally to open that space up even further.
And in second place, we have SendCloud, which is a Dutch-based e-commerce shipping platform. It's plotting its expansion in the UK after raising £127 million in fresh funding. So it takes it up to around $175 million. Series C financing. So they've launched here a year ago with 15 employees out of their 400 that are based in the UK. And SendCloud helps online businesses fully optimize their shopping process, used by 23,000 merchants. It's a multi-carrier platform that simplifies flexible delivery. So, for example, in the UK, it's connected up carriers such as Royal Mail, Hermes, and also cross-border delivery into even parcel lockers, which, fun fact, I happen to work on one of the early e-commerce parcel locker solutions in the UK alongside Amazon Locker just before the launch. So it is nice to see a great carbon-friendly delivery option becoming more mainstream.
Yeah, and I think this is really exciting that they're opening up here in the UK and going to expand. I think both Ryan and I do quite a lot of work in the sort of the verticals where you're looking at businesses that are shipping both in the UK and internationally, particularly around those that are either wholesaling or manufacturing stock. And we've seen products like Unleashed and some of the others in that space integrating with shipping businesses and people like Royal Mail, etc. And it's absolutely integral to a business that has stock or products that they need to move around the world to their customers. And anything that makes it easy for them, it's got to be good for everyone.
And then in first place, we have Air Wallets, a Xero app which makes reconciliation easier. They create bank feeds in Xero for single and multi-currencies. It's a Series E raise of $200 million, bringing its total raise value to $702 million. To date against a 4 billion valuation. So what is a unicorn times 4, John?
I don't know. It's who knows? There's got to be a quadricorn.
A quadricorn. Brilliant. So 800 employees with a mission to build global financial infrastructure and applications to help customers grow, again, without borders and restrictions. They're currently experiencing 40 to 50% growth in the UK, where they are hoping to double down their efforts.
Yeah, John and I caught up with them at a digital accounting show, and you can tell they're definitely putting a lot more investment in the UK. It's definitely an interesting tool. They've got an awful lot going on inside their platform. So as well as dealing with foreign currency transactions, you've got virtual cards, physical cards. They cover a lot. I think they're going to rival, I guess, solutions that individually focus in specific areas by bringing everything in one place.
And that's all from the raises.
Cool. Thanks indeed. That wraps up everything on the fundraisers that we've got to talk about. Now we've got some general updates on products that are out there in the market that most people will be familiar with. So I've got a quick one. BTC have just announced an integration with Pixie. So for those that don't know, Pixie is practice management software. Really gained some good ground in a very competitive market around small practices in particular. BTC is an accounts and tax production suite of software, but doesn't really have much in the way of practice management. So this is a really good fit for the two products. And it's certainly the way that we're starting to see the market moving is these collaborative endeavors between products, trying to build a suite of products best of breed for practices. Ryan, I think you've got a quick update.
Yeah, so I love covering things that are new to the app stores and app marketplaces, and there was a couple that caught my eye over the last month. We've got Planyard, which has come in as a new member of the App Store, which is a construction project management app. And what I'm starting to see is actually a lot more of these. For quite a while in the App Store or app marketplaces, you would have lots of trade management apps, but nothing really of any depth in the construction side. You have the odd one or two, but we're seeing quite a few in this space, and Planyard is a good example of that. And then on the QuickBooks Online side, we've got Weave, which is a all-in-one customer communication platform dealing with messages, phone calls, forms, payments, etc. So covering pretty much the whole suite. And they've developed an integration into QuickBooks Online. We're starting to see a few, more apps in this space as well. And there's definitely some that John and I get involved in. And I think we're going to, see some more that come out on the App Store or the app marketplaces over the next month or so.
Moving on to something else that's really super exciting as well is that the FCA and Bank of England have announced that they're going to start deploying blockchain for regulatory reporting. So the regulatory reporting side of it's probably a bit boring, but really integral to the whole operation of financial services in the UK, and they're setting aside £120 million budget for that. So it's an exciting time, and really they're going to be focusing on two things really. One is building up how to report through blockchain and the use of API technology to connect regulatory systems together. So for anyone that works in the space, they'll probably know that regulatory reporting in this space can be extremely painful and it can be quite manual as well. So anything that makes that process easier, more streamlined is good for the businesses that operate in that space, but equally good for regulators because they're going to have better information, better quality information, and it's going to be coming to them quicker and be more useful to them to analyze for risks. Indy, I think, have you got a few other bits?
I noticed on LinkedIn, It Settled and Swoop announced a partnership. Good news for most of us that work in the receivable space. They clearly have kind of got their eye on the ball with what needs to happen when it comes to managing credit control and how that links very nicely to the financing side of it. If you're a Swoop customer, then it means that you'll get a heavily discounted subscription to It Settled for the next 4 months. Like the first month is free, and then you get a reduced fee for the next 3 months. So for all those who are Swoop customers, it might just be something that's quite interesting. For all those who aren't, then maybe it's just something to consider, that there is something in that credit control, accounts receivable piece that seems to be growing more and more.
Yeah, I think for those of you that have not come across It Settled or Swoop, they're both, I guess, relatively new to the cloud accounting space, even though they've been around for a while. I just don't think they've gone down that accountant channel, and so they've been quiet to us. But they're doing a lot at the moment. So It Settled are building quite a few integrations into similar products. So they're the credit control facility, but with the full chasing. So if the system can't bring in the debt, they guarantee that they will chase in that debt for you. So interesting, goes kind of that step beyond the likes of Chaser and Fluidly from a debt chasing point. And then Swoop are more than just capital advisory. They've gone into kind of grant advisory as well. And it looks like now with these partnerships, they're trying to work out that, as you said, that whole receivable space. So really interesting products. And I think we're going to hear a lot more about them over the coming months as well.
Ryan, I almost skipped you, but I think there's one other little bit from you.
Well, a little bit. I think that's an understatement, John. So this was Intuit buying DataDeer, or I guess more accurately, the technology acquisition of DataDeer. from this, they are basically buying the ability to build into Excel. So DataDeer, for those of you that haven't come across it, has always been a brilliant partner of Xero that links in through the API of Xero and pulls and pushes data via Excel. So with the likes of Making Tax Digital and Making Tax Digital links, the ability to push information in and make yourself compliant. If you couldn't have your program connected directly into Xero, this was a brilliant tool for that. And it looks like QuickBooks went, we're not going to build this, let's just buy it. Their typical thing of identifying a great partner and bringing the technology in.
We had a quick catch-up call with our QuickBooks account manager a couple of weeks ago, and he was sort of saying that it's going to be pushed out into the advanced product, which I think is US only for the time being, but is expected to come into the UK hopefully in the next few months. And I think it's a really interesting development. This, isn't it? We're seeing QuickBooks and Sage and Xero now as well, all making a lot of work and a lot of noise around reporting. QuickBooks has historically sometimes taken a bit of a battering for its reporting, maybe not being quite as good as some of the other products out there. So it is an interesting move that all three of these products are moving to focus a bit more on reporting and how you do that.
I'm not aware of really anything that rivals DataDeer in this space. So there's going to be a lot of reliance on the people that are using this. They're not really got anywhere else to go. So if Intuit do shut this down, how do we solve, I guess, those problems of that digital link, where if there's no native integration, there's usually been a workaround by utilizing a tool like DataDeer. So concerning, but let's hope that they see the value in that, keeping that connection.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think Xero do have a very basic kind of Excel sort of integration for MTD for VAT, but I don't know how well used it is, amongst other accountants. I think we use it for one client, and that's about it. So that's less than 1% of our overall users. But yeah, it's an interesting place. I mean, I think also my other feelings on this is that we've seen in the past that Sage have built integrations with Office 365 and some of the reporting tools that are in there, and still there are complaints about the quality of the reporting, or the reporting not being structured in a way that's easy to use. So I suppose Intuit and QuickBooks need to kind of learn those lessons and make the best use of the technology that they're getting here. And then I've got one last piece of news. It's the one we've all been waiting for, the big one, which is that Sage have acquired GoProposal. So I mean, this I think for a lot of people came almost completely out of the blue. I saw Paul Barnes at Accountex North a couple of weeks ago, and he was looking very pleased, but I couldn't quite work out why. And now I know why. So I think the deal's been sort of undisclosed in terms of how big it is, but fascinating acquisition by Sage. They're buying a great team of people, a piece of technology that really only has maybe one or two other direct competitors with it in the accounting space, and I think it's an interesting move. There are rumors that Sage are really looking to now push in a similar way that we talked about before. They're looking to push on that practice management side, on about making their practice technology much more capable. And I wonder if GoProposal, this acquisition of GoProposal, is the first step on really making some waves in this space.
I think it's also an interesting one in that I believe GoProposal have a lot of quite dedicated users, ones that it's very, unless they fundamentally strip the product, that are very unlikely to leave. And so you're bringing those into your space, and if you're going to be talking to them a lot, as it's powered by Sage already, you can start putting other products there and hopefully win some of those clients over. So I think it's a bit of a marketing strategy as well as building out that tech stack. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, they've got a lot of convincing to do, I think, in the Sage team to really bring people over.
We should say, congratulations to the team there. I mean, it's it's a product that I think they built 5 years ago. I started building 5 years ago between Paul and James, and to go from nothing to selling to one of the biggest accounting technology providers in the world is really staggering. So it's a really impressive feat.
And luckily, I don't have anything else to do.
We've even got to the point where Ryan and I are now managing the co-parenting that Indy has to do. When we do start whittering on, David literally just tunes out. It's just like,
Yeah.
I've switched him off.
I just want you to put a bow around it.
I've already come up with the quadricorn, for Christ's sake.
Meteorite that comes out of the sky and obliterates all of planet Earth, but leaves all the accountants behind.
Floating in space.
Floating in space, but they must complete the tax return.
So on this show, we've got David Tuck. Hi, David. For those that don't know David, which surely can only be a handful of people in the accounting space now, David used to be the owner of Chaser. But before that, I wonder, David, if you can just delve into life pre-Chaser for us.
Yeah, sure thing. And thanks very much for having me here. So yeah, I'm 15 years into my career now. I spent the first 5 in practice, qualifying as an accountant with Deloitte, did their grad scheme, and worked in tax there. Did the ACA Chartered Accountants qualification, and then for my sins, did the Chartered Tax Advisor qualification to boot.
Wow. So yeah, very much more qualified than me, David. I have to admit. And then you went and built an app. So something must have inspired you to do that. Could you kind of talk a little bit about why you went down that route and why pick that topic and what I guess Chaser became?
Sure. So yeah, I sort of missed out a step in between. So I was in practice for 5 years, then did 3 years sort of in a succession of industry, startup, SME, finance leadership roles, all of which were businesses that sold on payment terms, which is relevant to what we'll come on to with Chaser. And I've always been entrepreneurial from a young age. My first business was, well, business is probably a generous term, was age 6, going door to door selling pine cones in our local cul-de-sac. And so yeah, I've always had that bug, and was really lucky. Worked for some great founders in my last kind of industry finance role, which was a travel and lifestyle social network called Wayne, which stood for Where Are You Now? Worked with some great founders there who are really generous in opening my eyes, opening doors to the London tech startup ecosystem. And I was 29. I was getting married the next year, and it was a kind of now or never. You know, if I don't do it now, you know, when will I do it? So it was right place, right time. And I'd started using cloud accounting in that job, and so discovered the existence of and the concept of an ecosystem within that. And so,
and sorry, jumping in though, when you say you're using cloud accounting, was that a specific tool?
Yeah, so we were using Xero at Wayne, having used kind of Line 50 in my previous Sage Line 50 in my previous industry finance role, and yeah, conceived of how credit control as a painful process that I've been responsible for as a finance leader could be done differently, and looked around, couldn't see a solution that was doing a great job of it, and thought, well, this is my opportunity.
And so that obviously, I guess, would have been the birth child of Chaser. But could you give us a little bit of a feel for how those early years were, some milestones throughout that process, and then what triggered the end of that journey for you?
Sure. So, I mean, to put some dates on it, so it was autumn 2013 when left my last full-time finance director role, found a contractor to work with to build the first prototypes, and that went really well, across multiple rounds of testing. And then, it was clear that we had a really kind of powerful product there. And so Mark, who was the contractor working with, left his kind of full-time job, and this was June 2014. We then launched in August 2014, a couple of months later, and then raised a first round of venture capital led funding of £500,000 in April 2015 off the back of really great solid kind of early adoption. I think the stat was something like the first 55 or so of our active free trialists converted into paying users. So that was really positive. Then won Xero's App Partner of the Year award in 2016. And this was back in the day where basically, Receipt Bank, as it was then, used to win it, all the different awards around the globe. So it was, it was pretty sort of groundbreaking for anyone other than Receipt Bank to win a Xero App Partner Award. So that was fantastic. And then, a succession of kind of other, milestones along the way. We won the Accounting Web Cloud App of the Year award 3 years in a row, 2017 through 2019, which was great, and did a lot of things kind of really, really well in terms of working with accountants and bookkeepers as partners, as a kind of route to market, helping them use Chaser for their clients, and kind of raised another couple of rounds of funding, one in autumn 2018, and then another just before the middle of 2019, to be able to grow the business and the team.
Yeah, and I've definitely not been with you throughout this full journey, but I feel like I've known you for quite a while, David. You were, the face of Chaser. It was your baby, and unlike a lot of the other apps out there, I guess your passion for the product really came through at all the events, and it was really interesting to see your journey. But I guess the bit that I know less about, and I don't know how comfortable you feel talking about it, but it must be been a challenge for you coming to kind of the end of that journey. And is there any kind of insights you could give to us on how that came about, why you decided that actually maybe this is the time to move on?
Well, I mean, getting fired was the first part of it. No, look, I've been doing it for 7 years, and with the benefit of hindsight, I'd probably allowed myself to get a little bit kind of stuck and kind of tunnel vision with it. And at the end of the day, you kind of go out and raise capital from people, and they'll have expectations, and you need to kind of deliver on that. And sometimes expectations will be aligned and all kind of goes great, and sometimes those expectations will not be aligned, and at the end of the day, it's a kind of recipe for straitjacketing, unless something kind of gives, and ultimately in that equation, the only thing that could give would was me. It's not like going to buy anyone out. Don't have the capacity to do that, and therefore it's in everyone's interest to kind of to find a solution.
Yeah, but I guess through that entire process, you've learned an awful lot, got an awful lot of experience of taking something from tiny to big.
I'm really interested in how did you find those customers? How did you go about finding some customers for a brand new app that no one had really heard of?
So it was a combination of just the first customers we found from when I went to XeroCon September 2013 and met a bunch of people, and then stayed in touch with them, and they, it's a funnel here, right? Like quite a few of them dropped off, but then, there were some who kind of stayed the course, couldn't get rid of me, who became beta testers and then became early customers, and then, started within that very sort of defined kind of Xero accounting partner early adopter world, who were active on, now LinkedIn is a lot more prominent, but back then it was very much Twitter. So who are the ones who are most active? And then, you found ways to kind of, leverage the early adopters you already had to get intros to other people. And then, when the opportunity arose to, do Xero events, went there and was fortunate enough to build some really good relationships with, the sort of Xero sort of senior account manager teams. So, people like Glenn Foster, Kat Bond, Ian Phillips, and, so was kind of really sort of fortunate in that regard. But it was nothing kind of more complicated than a combination of like massively over-serving those early users, such that you kind of had, positive, like they were positively inclined towards you, plus you had some stuff in the Goodwill bank account to make the ask for introductions to other people who could be good early adopters.
Yeah, interesting.
Moving on from Chaser, I've seen you around doing a lot of consulting roles for different apps. Connect 4 is one of those. And I assume that's been a little bit of your baby for a while, is helping those apps learn about what you've learned through that process. Would that be a good?
Yeah, absolutely. I've really loved the opportunity to do that. I wasn't really too sure what I'd do when I left Chaser the middle of last year, and kind of applied for a couple of jobs, which thankfully I didn't get, because that absolutely, with hindsight, I can see clearly now, like wasn't what I wanted to do. But it's been really great to have the opportunity to kind of do that consulting work, and firstly to consolidate my learnings, but also so my wife Jess and I had our third child, our daughter Alice, back in December. So when I left Chaser, we agreed kind of very early on that there was only room in the house for one new baby, and therefore that the next startup baby would need to wait until the second half of 2021 at the earliest. And so having that ability, but let's be clear, the kind of consulting work was sort of born out of a necessity of I've got a gap, but actually I've really loved it. I've really loved that opportunity to work with a real range of businesses, some like Connect 4 at the very, very start of their journey, which has been great for me, in the context of now going back and starting my next thing myself. But to work with businesses at the kind of other end of the spectrum, some like much bigger, more established businesses who are looking to either come to the UK and focused on accountants as a route to market, or develop accountants as a channel to market that they haven't focused on previously. It's been great to have the opportunity to work with such a rich array of really exciting businesses.
There's a lot of brands that are trying to sell into accountants right now as a channel. And David, given that you've worked both sides, so you've been the accountant who's been sold to, but also with Chaser and working with other brands. One of the things that I found interesting from having spoken to you is this 7-year itch that you've spoken about. Could you give us all a little teaser, perhaps just the top 3 pieces of advice that you would give to apps that are looking to sell into accountants at the moment?
So my top 3 pieces of advice. So the first one, this really may sound like kind of counterintuitive, but like, question whether it's the right channel for you at all. I kind of I find myself talking myself out of consulting work quite a bit with people, because there just seems to be this received wisdom of, okay, we've got a product, we've got an SME product, therefore we must do accountants, and accountants must be a really important channel to market for us. And I think you've just got to really question, is this something that, like, how is an accountant ever going to bring up your product in conversation with a client? Like, what's the scenario where that comes up? Because in so many times where I've spoken to kind of whatever technology products, it's just that it's just so far out of anything that would resemble an accountant's core competency. Maybe you've got 1 or 2 here or there for whatever reason, because they've just taken a fancy to it, and you've gotten well with that. You've got well with them, but like in general, you've just got to really question that, are accountants right for me at all? The second one is, be really, really clear on like how are you expecting accountants to work with you? I break it down into this model of 3 things: awareness, ARU, awareness, introduction, and use. Awareness, is it just you want accountants to be able to kind of talk about you if it comes up in conversation, and know about you if a client kind of comes in with a conversation. Use, at the other end of the spectrum, that's where you're a practice app. You help them deliver a service that they are already delivering, in either more like more profitably, or you enable them to deliver it in a better way than they've been able to do previously. And then that kind of that the I of that introduced, that links to the kind of this idea of the 7 client itch, whereby any app that's applicable to a big enough percentage of any accountant's client base, we'll get 7 clients. And the 7 is just an arbitrary number that I've come up with because it sounds catchy, because you can do the play on words with the film. But there'll always be a small number of your of the firm's clients who come and they've asked about it. And so, the accountant in that situation doesn't want to look stupid. They need to have something, they need to be able to answer that question when a client comes and says, I've got this real problem with my database, with my credit control. What are there any good technology solutions for this? The accountant wants to have an answer to that question. They don't want the kind of tumbleweed. But that is a million miles away. And this is that idea of the 7 clients. That's a million miles away from the accountant proactively going out and saying, hey, let's have a meeting so that I can tell you about this kind of software that you should be using. Because that's such a huge departure. It's such a huge reach for the client to be in a situation where they're sort of proactively recommending. And that's the third thing. So, are accounts the right channel for you at all? And all of these are interlinked: awareness, introduction, or use. And the third one is the number of times, and I kind of pull my hair out and I just feel like a broken record, clients, not customers. The number of times people in their marketing people are like, accountants, wouldn't you like to help your customers with their whatever? And you're like, no accountant will ever refer to their customers. They'll refer to their clients. And I'll make that point, which is a terminology point. But that terminology point is kind of, that's the visible tip of this huge iceberg, because that iceberg of client versus customers is why accountants don't work like conventional partnerships, where it's it can be about the numbers and it's, how many customers we got, how many can we upsell to this? For the accountant, that's not how they're looking at their clients. They're not looking at them as an additional kind of, monetization opportunity. No matter how much you discount your software, no matter how favorable you make it for them, how much, in the way of materials you provide to help support them go about doing that job. So much of the time they won't want to do that job in the first place, because in their heads, they're weighing the kind of, okay, there's this upside, the product might help, I might get this additional kind of revenue, fine. But the downside risk is, what if it goes wrong, and my client has a bad experience there? I might lose the client. Now, that may be a completely, imagined risk. It may never come to pass, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter how likely it is or how kind of, realistic it is. The fact that it's in an accountant's head, when they're thinking about that kind of situation of proactive recommendation. And so that's the huge challenge of the kind of, the client versus customer mindset. And it presents for accountants as a channel is beyond that kind of 7 client edge. And unless you're a product that they, that an accountant uses in delivering whatever service, getting them to go out and proactively kind of recommend your product is just, is a really tough trade-off for them versus, the overall kind of open-ended fee revenue that they have in their mind as being at risk in the event that recommendation and then being seen to have pushed and sold software for their own benefit doesn't work out well.
I know you've been kind of hinting at that through your blog that you've been releasing, which is it called Starting Up Again? Is that correct?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and there was admittedly I've been following that. I've been following your journey, and getting hints at what you've been working on. But there was one I wanted to make some reference to, because it was talking about the accounting profession or professional services,
Sure.
as a whole. And there was a few quotes I picked out on it that I found really, interesting, potentially quite controversial. So I'm going to run through a few of these, and then maybe it's something we could talk through if you don't mind.
Yeah, great.
I'll just pick some of these. So there's one that says, today's professional service firms are a legacy of the guilds of the mid-19th century. We've got the grand bargain, being that agreement between the professional and the client, has become one-sided and eye-wateringly expensive.
Yeah.
We've got professional service firm partners are the most expensive account managers in history. I thought that was quite a nice controversial one. And then professional services are antiquated. They're very rigid in their delivery, and they're quite opaque. Now, I think some of those we can definitely get on board with, but they're quite punchy at the accounting profession. So obviously you're qualified. You've already gone through that, very qualified, and you've built an app. So you've, I guess, through your experience, seen different sides of this. You've worked with accountants, you've worked in accountancy, and it's made some quite interesting opinions come through. Do you want to kind of elaborate on how that's come about?
Okay, so that's from a post on Starting Up Again. I think it was post number 7, which is titled "The Emancipation of Expert Knowledge," which is very much my my kind of Jerry Maguire mission statement. Hence the kind of the colourful and sort of provocative kind of perspectives within it. This is sort of about the organizational infrastructure of professional services. I'm quite fond of and I cite it places within the blog as a thought experiment, as a way of triggering first principles. Let's say an asteroid hit the Earth and wiped out the entire infrastructure of today's professional services industry. So all the organizations, all of their ways of doing things, but it didn't kill anyone. All of the people and their intellectual capital remained, and you were responsible for rebuilding the means of disseminating expert knowledge. I think invariably the answer to that question is what do you to the answer, well, what do you build? The answer is invariably something dramatically different to what is in place today, because that's the point about the guilds and the grand bargain. Today's professional services industry is a legacy of the Industrial Revolution, and kind of the professions within inverted commas. It got supersized for kind of globalization, and it's when knowledge and expertise needed to live in people's heads. And yes, they might document it in books, but they would learn it from books, and then that expertise would be in different people's heads. It's never had a fundamental kind of ground up rethink for the internet era, in a way that you take kind of taxis or pre-prepared food delivery. You ask that same asteroid hit the Earth question, the answer doesn't look that different to Uber or that different to delivery. It looks slightly different because everyone would do things slightly differently with the benefit of hindsight. But you apply that to professional services and expert knowledge, I think it looks unimaginably kind of different. And so that's the kind of guilds and the grand bargain point. And then comments like professional service partners, it's mad in a way when you think about it, that you've got the most kind of senior technical practitioners are also responsible for account management. And I as a client have to I have to hire one of these account managers for all of these idiosyncratic disciplines of accounting, tax, law, corporate finance. I mean, you have to have separate partner account managers within the same professional service firm, within different departments of that. That's mad to me, right? What I want is I want my experts who have the knowledge, and then I want someone with the kind of octopus arms to connect and account manage that in for me. And when you kind of step back at it and you look at all its constituent parts, you think, God, if I had that blank canvas, which is, I guess, the luxury that you have as an entrepreneur. If I had that blank canvas, and it's kind of, well, I sort of do have the opportunity to have that blank canvas, I do things so drastically differently. And then you kind of say, well, okay, cool. Well, then why don't you?
I suppose my question really has sort of been around about sort of playing the devil's advocate role. And, accountants are very much guilty of doing the same as we've always done. And so, the asteroid hits the Earth, what stops every accountant, or 90% of accountants, just doing the same as they've always done, and actually changing the way that they deliver their services and consider their clients their customers?
Look, and I think that's the that's the age-old challenge, right? Like there's one like why now disruptive moment that kind of happens and comes along, and it's sort of the old the idea of a black swan event. No one's seen a black swan until you see one, and then lo and behold it exists. I think I think there's a bunch of factors which come together, which means this isn't going to be a switch that flicks. It's kind of like the idea of the 10-year overnight success story, which like for someone like Xero is to people for now. Like, oh yeah, I keep seeing this Xero, they've come out of nowhere, and in actual fact it's like, well, no, they've been around like plowing away for kind of 15 years. It's that idea of a skyscraper. It's only only becomes visible when it's kind of surpassed the sort of the height of the buildings around it. So it won't be a switch that flicks, but I think there are a combination of factors at play now in terms of advancements in like the technological enablers in terms of the advancement of kind of processing power. And yes, it stands on top of the giants of kind of cloud accounting and the prevalence there, when it comes to kind of us and transfer pricing, advancements in machine learning as well. But it's not just about where the technology is. There's the human factors at play, and I think the kind of it's really easy. Everyone just says, well, the pandemic and COVID, and so that's my thing for why now is going to change everything. But I think if you look at what that blank canvas future would be, you wouldn't have these huge hundreds of thousands of monolithic organizations. You'd have you turn the technology that gets applied to great effect in kind of online dating to matching you to an expert for your needs, and matching experts in micro teams and squads for the particular job. And I think that's what that future should look like. And the trends of the pandemic, right, with people wanting flexible work, wanting the ability to work remotely, which you look at how software engineers have that with their work, right? Go kind of work from anywhere and kind of get involved. Why can't a human expert have that, right? Why can't the person who is the most knowledgeable on the UK South Korean double tax treaty, why can't they leverage that and go and work from ever and productize their knowledge? Why can't there be a platform that helps them do that? And then, matches them with teams, and, I think blockchain will be a really important technology in terms of, there's not going to be famous last words, but I don't see a scenario where there's a Mayday coin, but I mean the actual kind of underlying blockchain technology rather than the kind of the more sort of cryptocurrency noise element of it. But that blockchain is a trust system and a way of enabling you to see who's developed that knowledge, who's worked on that particular project. All of that leads kind of away from just a huge fat that's involved of work, level of fat that's involved in working with a big professional services firm to kind of get a piece of advice, because they're the only ones who have the economies of scale to provide it. I think you turn that on its head, and it's okay, you have a technology platform to just kind of take away all the fat, right? Take away all the client take on the information gathering and the documentation and the standardization of that. And then it's just about the human experts kind of applying and leveraging their knowledge, right? To go back to the point about how antiquated it is, right? There's no one-to-many delivery in expert knowledge today, which is ridiculous when you think about it. It's rooted in this idea that no two client situations are the same. And yeah, maybe no two client situations are 100% the same. But let's say you have 10 tech startups who are expanding from the UK into the US. Are you telling me that there is no crossover with any of their situations? That's nonsense. I would, bet good money that 90% of the work is the same. It's a sort of first principles transformation, right? So it won't be, okay, the existing firms changing their behavior. It will be a kind of incremental transformation to something that looks, I guess, as different to getting using Uber looks to the old ways of getting a taxi, or frankly I think maybe even significantly more.
Yeah, and I guess that leads into what you've been working on. And I know you compared it, the accounting profession, Seed, as you just said, to Deliveroo. I think you must have a much better Deliveroo experience than I've had, because I've not had the best Deliveroo experience so far. But it does turn us on to what you are releasing now, and I'm very interested to hear. So please give us an overview, because it's going to be coming out, I guess, over time. Give us an overview of what's coming.
Sure. So I mean, it's sort of as Lao Tzu said, journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Just huge dreams and aspirations for what the future of expert knowledge could and should look like. Where we are starting, so combined revenues of the big four, for example, are $160 billion. You don't build something that transforms that element of the professional services industry by trying to do everything that they do on day one. You find a slice that lends itself really well to kind of transformative delivery through tech, in the same way as, it's very easy to forget that Amazon only sold books for the first 4 years that they were in this world. And so where we're starting is transfer pricing, which is the pricing of intercompany transactions for tax purposes, basically intragroup recharges. Our first product is an accounting system. We'll start with Xero, but in due course, other accounting system integrating products to help businesses automate the process of calculating and processing their intragroup recharges, to do for that as a process what Xero and others have done for filing the VAT return. Because I remember my first move out of practice using Sage Line 50, the VAT return each quarter was like half a day to a full day's worth of work. And it blew my mind when I came to Xero. It's like, what? This is now 5 to 10 minutes, and I just have to review and make sure everything's all right, and then press OK. The same should be possible for intragroup kind of recharges. So Mayday Recharger is a product to do just that, and we're aiming to get a kind of a sellable product live by Christmas. We just completed a round of demo feedback from a group of fantastic, incredibly well.
This is John, isn't it? This is John.
Yeah. Building up to it. Kind of testers, including no less than John Toon himself, which has been fantastic. So we're feeling, really good about the sort of shape. We're in lots more stuff to kind of think about and refine, but in terms of core concept, we're in really good shape with that. So now we're kind of motoring ahead. We just found a freelance engineer who we're going to start working with next week, which can help us accelerate on the product development side of things, which is great. Hopefully have that product live by Christmas. And then the second product next year will be around, I guess, the actual kind of professional advice of transfer pricing, because what we're building with Mayday Recharger is the operation of
transactional part.
Recharge. Yeah, exactly, the transactional part. We'll move to the front end of that with the actual advice and policy design towards the kind of the middle of next year. And then, huge opportunities off the back of that around, we can move up market with transfer pricing, move across into other areas of expanding internationally. But yeah, we're our first slice of expert knowledge is transfer pricing, and the pricing of intercompany transactions for tax purposes, which is great. And I think there's a huge opportunity for that. There's a really underserved market at the startup kind of SME end, where there's a solution that they need that doesn't exist right now. And yeah, on a, if nothing, just as an aside, it's a real kind of I guess personal victory for me, because one of the things you resign yourself to when your first business is a credit control startup is that you'll never start a more sexy business. But with transfer pricing and the pricing of intercompany transactions, I think I may just have done it.
Yeah, you've really made this sexy. I can't wait to see it, David. And given the massive success that Chase has had and how you built that up, I think there's going to be lots of people that that want to hear more. But thank you for coming on. You've taken us through this entire journey. I think we've really got a good feeling of how you've come to this crux of building up your second massive product. If people want to, I guess, find out more, or kind of get signed up for the new product when it's released, how do they go about that? How do they go about talking to you?
Sure. Great stuff. So in terms of the product itself, if they visit getmayday.com, so www.getmayday, all one word, .com, and I'll provide a link which hopefully can be somewhere in the info around the show going out. And then the blog starting up again is hosted on a platform called Substack. If people go to my LinkedIn profile, David Tuck, there are plenty, more than enough links to it on there.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again, David. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I think that wraps up today's pod. Lots of stuff going on in the app news and the fundraisers that we talked about. Excellent to hear from David Tuck and to listen to his story. And great interview there, Ryan. Thank you very much. And hopefully that new little bit where we had a bit of a rant about the practice world and what it's like to be an accountant whetted your appetite for something else in the future. As always, we really appreciate you providing any feedback, and we encourage you to do so. Make sure you do subscribe, make sure you download our future pods and look out for them. Just in case you want to get in hold of any of us, Ryan, where can we get a hold of you?
Best place to always find me is on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter at Ryan N. Piercy, but yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you ever want to chat.
Thanks, Ryan. And Indy, where can we get a hold of you?
LinkedIn, Indy Tatler, best place for me, and then Twitter at Indivir.
Super, thank you very much. And if you want to get a hold of me, again, LinkedIn is the place to be for me. Check me out, John Toon. And if you're really desperate and you want to see me moan about stuff, check my Twitter out. It's John_Toon. Thanks very much. That wraps it all up. And I think it's bedtime for all of us because it's pretty late now here in the UK and even later in Barcelona. So thank you very much for listening and goodbye.